All right. Today, kind of a cool little project that we're going to do, which is a MERN stack. So it's a full stack application deployed to Google Cloud. Obviously, MERN, Mongo, Express, React, and Node. That is built in what you could call the minimum viable product. So minimum MVP is a term that I became familiar with recently, but it's a strategy to say, hey, let me build a piece of software that is usable, obviously as the name suggests, a minimum viable product. And so, you're not building everything and the kitchen sink. Like literally, you're building a bare bones application to get it up and working and running and functioning. And so what we have here, what we're building today is a Tinder-like application, a dating app, where you have essentially a user that would be logged in. So we're mocking up this user that's logged in, and we have a feature where you can read profile pictures out of a database. And as a logged in user, you can swipe right saying that you like someone or swipe left saying that you don't. And so this is a minimum viable product. When you get to the end of this, you will see it has everything needed to essentially bare bones this, read from a database, profile information and profile pictures, and functionality that's set up, a template that's set up to, I like this person's picture or I don't like this person's picture, and save that information. So, and again, it is deployed to Google Cloud. So, some things that you'll need to do prior to this, I'll walk through this, but you will need some way of paying for Google Cloud projects. And so I've got some Google Cloud projects. The URL is council.cloud, or it's just cloud.google.com, and you'll need a credit card. You'll get some free credits if you've never done this before. You'll need to go ahead and set that up. So once you kind of have your payments set up, there, I just scrolled right past under billing, right? So you're going to get your billing set up. You'll be able to create some credits to create a new project. Okay, and again, you get some free credits. So I already have this live, but I'm just going to be doing it again. So I'll create a new project, and this will be the first thing that you'll need to do is create a new project. And for this one, I'll just call this the Rankin Dating App. Okay, so just call it something a little bit different than my last one. And notice the project ID cannot be changed later. I know that was a question that my students had is, hey, I have this project ID, can I change it later? Here you see it cannot be changed later. So I'll let that spin up. Now, the way I'm going to be creating this and deploying it, I'll just create a folder on my desktop. And so in this MERN app, I'm going to be creating both the Express backend and the React frontend in the same folder. You probably want to get this on GitHub, so you might want to kind of clone a repo to kind of get started. In fact, I'll do that. I will make a GitHub repository, github.com, and create a public repo so I can put this source code on the internet for public access. So let me put this out here, and I'll call this the Rankin Dating App, and I'll make it public. I'm going to leave all of this blank for now and just create the repo. So let's start there. Now I'm going to go ahead and clone this repo onto my desktop. And so here's the URL to clone. So let me copy that. And I use TortoiseGit, so I have the option to clone a repo. And now let me drag that folder onto the screen. Rankin Dating App. Okay, there it is. And I'm going to open this up in Visual Studio Code. So of course you need Visual Studio Code. And another thing that you're going to need is the Google Cloud developer tools, G Cloud developer API, and so let me find the correct link here. 1 second. Okay, so you know, we already have this environment set up, but what you'll need to do if you haven't done this already, cloud.google.com, you're looking for the Cloud SDK, and we're going to click on Get Started. You're going to need to download the latest version for Windows, so the Google Cloud CLI installer, so that you get those commands recognized by your command prompt. Of course, getting the path updated and following the instructions to get all the commands recognized. Okay, so we got the thing cloned. We got the folder open in Visual Studio. Now, one of the first things I will do is open up a terminal and do npm init. So, terminal, new terminal. You will need Node. So the command node/v needs to return a value here. If you don't get this returned, you need to go to node.js.org and download the latest version of Node so that this is a recognizable command. And then you can do npm, same thing, npm version, and that allows you to do this command, npm init -y. So this is just spinning up an Express server is what we're going to need to do. And you can make changes to your package.json manually, adding yourself as the author, maybe some keywords, but I'm just going to use the autofill. Now the packages that we're going to bring in, we're going to install Express, that's going to be for our Express server. Axios is going to be for making requests to our backend. We're going to bring in cores for cross-origin scripting. We're going to bring in debug for debugging tools. Let's see, .env. Of course, we're bringing in, we already said Express, and MongoDB drivers to connect to Mongo. So let's hit enter on those dependencies. Express, Axios, cores, debug, .env, and MongoDB. Now if I open up my package.json, I could see these dependencies listed. One more thing we're going to bring in that is kind of newer for my students is Material UI. We're very familiar with Bootstrap, but getting more familiar with this Material UI. Material UI is a beautiful by design and features suite of custom options that make it easy to implement your own design systems. So you can kind of see here some of the different buttons and sliders and checkboxes, and here you see the installation for npm install material, UI material, emotion react and emotion styled. So let's bring that in. I'm going to click on getting started. So back to our project. Let's bring in those dependencies. And there's also some icons that are Material UI icons. So there's a second command to bring in the icons, which Material UI icons. And there's our, there it is right there. I think we already had these three. So we had, let me double check here. So we had MUI material right there. Then we had styled and react. Styled and react. So this is the one that I'm missing, is the icon pack. So let's just grab that. and bring that in. Close this package JSON. Try and get all the dependencies loaded up at first so that we can just get into the coding. Okay. And open that up. Oh, I didn't paste the right command. Oh, still installing. There it goes. Now that new one's added. Would you like to add node modules to a get ignore? Yes. So that's fine. So we're not bringing up our node modules, and okay. Now let's go ahead and wire up our Express server. So this is going to be index.js. It's going to be our main launching point. And import Express from Express. Let's import our .env. Import cores from cores. If you're following along, a lot of the code assistance that I'm getting is from GitHub Copilot, so I have that Copilot extension enabled. Let's see, import debug from debug, and spin up a debug server. And what I do is app:/server and .env config, bring in .env. Let's spin up our app. App.use cores, because that just fixes all the problems. Let's bring in allowing for JSON data, that's fine. URL encoded. Again, this is boilerplate Express server code. We've used this code and covered it in detail what it all means. You know, but I consider a lot of this to be boilerplate to spin up an Express server. I'm going to do an app.use express.static. Now this is an important, I'm going to put my React app inside of a folder called React/app, and the index page is going to be in the dist folder. So this line right here is static, not correct. Okay, this line right here points at our React app distribution folder, which is where our basically our home page is going to be for our React app. So this is an important line. Let's say what port we want. Const port equals. Let's get the port from our env file. Otherwise, we'll go on. So we'll have a port variable in our .env. Otherwise, we'll say today is 2023 is our year. So otherwise, it'll be port 2023. And let's spin up our application. And when it spins up, it's just going to say server running at localhost port. Close the semicolon. And let's make one API route, which will be something like app.get/API people list. And so when you hit this res status 200, hello from the API. Okay, so we're going to boot up the server and have one route that when you hit this route, it just sends a message back that says hello. And let's bring in a .env file. And in this .env, we're going to have a debug equals app:*. So this is our debug channel. We're going to say port of 3003. I'm going to put two things in here for my database, DB URL. Now what this is going to be is our connection string to our Mongo database. What you'll need is a Mongo account, mongodb.com, create an account here, log into your account. So let's sign in. And traffic lights, okay. And so, when we look at our database, you're going to click on Connect, and we're using the MongoDB driver. And so you're going to copy this connection string right here, and then replace everything here with your user password. Now you're going to replace everything in here, including the angle brackets, with your password. So for me, I'm going to paste in that DB URL, and then I'm going to put in my DB name, and I'll call this the dating app. And so let me copy in my connection string off screen, because it's probably smart to not put that on the internet. Okay, I'm going to save that file and close it. Now to bring it back on screen, the last thing to kind of show is that I did put a DB name in there. So I'm just connecting in a different way using Compass instead of the website. Here's my dating app, and here is a collection called people, and you can just see I have 4 records here. I'll revisit this, but here's the database name, dating app, that's on my Mongo cluster. Okay, so we got the Express server kind of booted up here, and now let's go into the package.json, and I'm going to put 2 scripts here. I'm going to make a start script for deployment, which is just going to run node index.js. And I'm going to have a start dev script, which will run node mon and bring in .env/config. Now node mon is a global dependency that you will need to install. So let's go to npm.js. If you haven't installed node mon before, you need to install this globally. So the command is npm I node mon, but you're going to put a switch on it to install globally. So you need to run this command at least once. And they say it's the recommended way. So I've already run that command, so run that command if you haven't done that before to get this to work. Remove the comma there. Now let's see what breaks. npm run start dev, and okay, so we need to, in our package JSON, add the type of module so that we can use imports. So type of module will allow us to use the ES6 import statement. That'll fix that error. And now we can see we get booted up, server running at localhost. We don't have a home route, but if I hit here and I go to my API people list, I get a message back, hello from the API. So our Express server is up and running, which is kind of the first step, is get that Express server up and running. Now, again, I'm going to bring in a React now using Vite. So that's our back end, or our middle tier, if you will, Express server. Now the next thing I want to do is bring in the front end. npm create Vite at latest. And the project name we said is React App, capital A, and that's there on line 13. That we are setting that folder name, so that is an important project name. Don't change that. Package name is React App, that's fine. I'm going to choose React and JavaScript. And it says go ahead and cd into the React app, so change your directory, by the way, cd rea and hit tab, that's going to autofill it. And then run an npm install, npmi for short. And that kind of installs all the dependencies for our React app. And then you're going to run npm run dev. So now that's done. I went ahead and typed in npm run dev and hit enter. And this should boot up our React app, which is the template that we have for React. Now, close, 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 minimize. All right. Let's go ahead and just change this. I'm going to delete all the kind of the boilerplate CSS. Change all, get rid of all this CSS. I don't want any pre-built CSS, just starting with empty CSS. Our app. I don't want your logos. Here, just going to change the markup here. And let me see what I want to do. Source. Just for now, I'll say Rankin dating app. Just for now, we can. So now, as I save that and reopen it, I just get Rankin dating app, and that's cool. To get the front end and the back end working together, then let's just close this and hit Y to clear it out. We need to get that distribution folder, npm run build. So there's a build script here, npm run build, that runs a Vite build. That's going to build our dist folder. Okay, so this is cool. So now we've got a dist folder here with our index.html that points at the JavaScript file where all the magic happens. There is a neat little trick that, thanks to Jacob, there's a script here that I want to add that's very useful in React, which is this. So let's go into the package JSON inside of the React app. So again, I'm here in package JSON inside of React, and here on my scripts, I'm going to add another script here that is build::auto, and that script runs a Vite build. So Vite build --watch is what I want to have this script do. Now this is really interesting, because what that does, if I go into here and I do npm run build::auto, it's going to do a build for me. But then anytime I make a change to my JSX, it'll redo that 2023. And now notice as I click save, it does my build again automatically for me. So basically, as I change my any components, if I change any component, it'll do a build automatically for me, so I don't have to do that step every step along the way. So that's really nice. So I've got that going. Let me start up a second terminal. So I'm going to click new terminal here. So I've got one terminal kind of running my React app. I'm going to start up a new terminal that will run my Express server. So I'm going to do npm run start-dev. And now you can see localhost is running. And if I open it up, you can notice that localhost points at my React app on the front end. So I've got a back end linking together with the front end. It's got the most current markup. And so these two things are playing nice. That's great. The next thing I want to do very early is I want to deploy this app to gcloud, right? So this is just a Express server and a React front end playing nice together, but in my experience, it's early to deploy early and often is a little bit better option than the alternative, which is just waiting and waiting and waiting and debugging all at the end. So here's my Rankin dating app. Notice the project ID is Rankin dating app. And so I need to change this in my terminal. I need to change my project in my terminal. gcloud project. So it's gcloud config set project is the command. And so it's pretty simple. gcloud config set project and then the project ID. So you can kind of see here's the command, gcloud config set project to your project ID. So we want to make sure we're deploying to the correct. So I'm going to stop my Express server. Okay, and let's do a gcloud config set project to my project ID. Okay, and updated the property. Now let's do a gcloud app. It's not gcloud app deploy. There's different ways to deploy. This is gcloud run. So I want to use gcloud run instead of gcloud app deploy. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do gcloud run deploy. And we're going to call this Rankin service. We'll just call it Rankin service. And hit enter. Now this process, the source code location is this root directory, so that is correct. And the first time you do this, you have to say yes to a couple of things. You want to enable some APIs. I'm going to hit yes. And okay, it doesn't know my billing account, so let me kind of go back into here and set up my billing. So let me hit billing, link a billing account to my billing account for education, and hopefully it lets me do that. And let me see if I can delete one real quick. You have reached the limit of projects which you can enable billing. So I'll set this to my personal one. It might charge me a penny, and I'm okay with that, just to keep it going. Okay. So we now have billing set up properly, and let's rerun that command now that billing is set up. gcloud run deploy Rankin service. Enter, and yes. And this deployment always tends to take a minute, so I'm just going to pause and resume. Okay, that was literally 30 seconds. So now I'm going to choose, I live in the Midwest, so I'm going to say 31 US Central is my location. I'm going to hit yes again. Allow unauthenticated users, I'm going to say yes. Okay, this will take a minute. Okay, it took a few minutes, but here you could see the app was deployed, and here's the service URL. So if we open that up, you can see we hit our front end, and if I hit /API people list you could see our back-end route being hit. So we got front-end and back-end deployed to Google Cloud. Now, in my haste, I realized I made a mistake, which is very easily fixed, in that I put some front-end dependencies in my back-end package JSON. So these dependencies belong on the front end. So I can, of course, uninstall those, but more importantly, I need to install those on the front end. And the beautiful thing is we are up and running. And the deployment is successful, and so far so good. Now, I guess what I'll do next is I will uninstall, which I don't do too often. There is an uninstall command, npm uninstall, pretty simple, npm uninstall package name. So here's all of the packages that we installed. So I'm just going to change that command to uninstall and paste that in there. So if I paste that command here and add in the words uninstall, copy that to the clipboard so that I can paste it in my Rankin dating app. And then I will copy the install command, and what I'll do is I'll cd into my React app, and I'll paste those as my front-end dependencies. Much better. Okay, now on our front end, I'll go ahead and make a components folder inside of source. And my first component will be a header. And I will make a header.css. And before I get too far into that, let's go into my app, and I will just change this up to be a div, class name of app, and then I will bring in a header component. Let's see if I can get it to recognize. Nope. So import header. There we go. Now in header, let's export default function. Okay, now that I'm in my React app, I will do a run. Let's get the npm run build auto to get the front end kind of saving as we go. And our back end. This is currently doing a build auto, so I'm going to stop that. So one terminal, I will start up my back end. npm run start dev. And if I bring that up, notice it's bringing in the header component. And so we are ready to get started on coding some of the header. So let's close that. Bring in the header. Hey, Mike. Okay, so one of the first things I'll bring in, part of Material UI is an icon button. You know, obviously we're going to be having some various like font awesome icons, or Material UI icons, I should say, and we're going to want those to be clickable buttons. So we're going to bring in icon button. So here we have import icon button. So on our header, I'm going to bring this up to the top. There's also an avatar. Okay, so as I switch up to the Material UI React avatar, avatars basically these little profile pictures that are brought in here. So we need to import avatar now. There we go, import avatar. Now since those are both the same, we could just do comma avatar. And we're going to bring in an icon, so I'm going to import something from the icons, which is the forum icon. And so here, div class name of header, that'll be good. Close the div. Icon button of an avatar, icon button of a forum. So now our avatar, we're going to set some props of our avatar. So kind of going back to the docs, the system prop that allows defining to override additional CSS styles. So we're going to be basically with this SX prop, we can set some CSS rules. So I'm just going to set a height and a width of our avatar. So we'll just try width of 56, comma, height of 56. And then we can send in a source prop. And I just use one of the avatar images. So that's that. Now as I save, notice kind of on the back end it's redoing my builds, and if I click localhost, you could see my avatar and my forum icon. And so what I'll bring in next is just a regular image. So in between these icon buttons, I'm just going to have an image tag, class name of header logo, and this is just the React icon. So here's a upload wikipedia.org. Here's a source address for a React icon. A little alt and self-closing tag. And as that goes and refresh, okay, that's huge. So we'll change this down. We'll do a little bit of styling. So what we're going to do on the styling for our header CSS, first off, let's bring in our CSS. So we're going to import header CSS. And we have a class of header, so we're going to style the class of header. We're going to make it a flex box. So we're going to display flex, which is what we're going to do to get things by default in a row. Align item center. justify content, space between, kind of a border on the bottom of our header, 1 pixel solid, F9, F9, F9. So a little border at the bottom of our header. If I refresh that, it's building. Okay. And so you can see now we've got a row, but we still have to change that header logo to be smaller. The way we're going to do that is with the class of header logo and object fit contain. It's about a height of 40 pixels. So again, when you kind of save it, you can see this build process starts. It takes a second, transform, and when you get to here, then you can refresh. And now we've got a header with a logo, user's profile, image, and just a clickable button. With this component, you know, right now these icon buttons, one thing I haven't tried is, you know, maybe set an on-click equals let's just see if we do a little arrow function, if we do a little console log. I think it's pretty simple to wire up click handlers to these, and so that's all I'm testing is on my image here, because it's a button, I should be able to wire up click handlers. Let me fix that. Okay, well, it does offer an explanation. I was basing an assumption, but it doesn't work to stand it up and on click, but you can wrap it in a div, and then when you say click the div. So that's a bummer, but that's okay. I'm just trying something out of curiosity. Okay, so back to header CSS. Let's see. Right now, our app is looking good. And so now our next component is going to be our dating cards. And so let's make another component. Let me close a lot of this stuff. Components, new component. Make a dating cards and a CSS. There's a hotkey for this boilerplate code, and I don't know what it is, but let's export default function. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's what it's not happy about. Lowercase c, capital C. Build started. Transformed. Well, let's refresh. Did I have an error? Oh, just another build start. Okay, now we're bringing in our dating cards. So let's talk about dating cards. Haven't talked about this dependency yet, but it's a front-end dependency. So if I go to my package JSON here, there is a pretty cool dependency. Let me show the page for it. npm.js React Tinder card. And so this is going to give us that swipe left and swipe right functionality. So there's all sorts of ways to try it out and make changes, but here is the npm command. So we'll bring this in on our front end. And so let's Control C this. Make sure we're in the React app folder. And let's bring in React Tinder card. While I'm at it, let's on the front end npm I axios.env that should be it. So if I double check that, looking good. Let's close down header. Let's close down header. Now on our dating cards component, let's bring in some things. Gonna import use effect and use state from React. Gonna import my Axios, import my Tinder card from React Tinder card, import my CSS. So those are my 4 imports here. We'll go ahead and make a hook, const people, set people. We're going to start this up as an empty array. And this is where we're going to start making our database call. So here I'm going to bring in use effect. So on the component mount, right, when this component mounts, we're going to run this code and console log use effect called. And let's make in our React app .env dot so React let's go vite dot env. Okay, so here's how to bring in a .env variable, but there's env.local, and then there's env.production, only loaded in a specified mode. So let's look at the different modes. env.local, here's a mode. Here's our modes. env.staging. There we go. Production. So there's env.local, different than env.production. So env.local. I'm going to create this inside of my React app folder. env.local and env.production. I forgot the dot. Rename dot env dot local. Okay. Thankfully, the icon. It's also important that our variables are prefixed with vite. So our variable names have to be vite underscore some key to be accessible. So I'm going to make a variable in my env.local Vite API URL. And our API URL on our local is 3003. Okay. And so over here, this API, we'll keep that file for later. And env.local. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this variable when this component loads. The URI is okay, and it's import. This is not import meta. There we go. And API URL is our variable name. URI, URL, potato, potato. So just want to read that variable out of the .env file when this boots up. Let me run my build auto and see if we get that console log showing the data out of our .env. Close that, close that. Sometimes it takes a second. Transform, there we go. Built. And we got a problem. Let me fix this. Okay, doing a little troubleshooting and had to unwind a little bit here to get my problem fixed. And so it might have been with one of my imports. So I rewound just a little bit. I'm going to say use effect and use state from React. And so let's just bring that in, and let's just go ahead and bring in our const people, set people, use state, and our use effect. Console log. Okay, so let's just see. So I bring those in. I probably had a typo in one of my imports, but I had to unwind a little bit of it and get this to say built. There we go. Use effect called in our variable coming out of localhost. So much better. So now let's bring in the Tinder card. Import from React Tinder card. That might be giving me a problem. Oh, I bet you it was my Axios call. Look how that auto-filled the incorrect. And my dating card from dating card CSS. So let's save on that. Make sure that none of those imports broke. I'm willing to bet. I have to go back and look, but that was one of my imports that did it. Built. It is one of my imports. Let's take off the Tinder card. Axios is pretty straightforward. Make sure I've got Tinder card and Axios in my package JSON. Axios, React Tinder card. Built. Yeah, it's my Tinder card. Let me look at that. I'm going to do another, instead of the / save, bring in some boilerplate. Maybe it's not happy because I'm bringing in Tinder card, but I'm not bringing in these functions. So let's bring in these functions. That's probably what it is. You can't bring in Tinder card without bringing in these functions. So after my use effect, I'll paste those. And let's also go to the docs and just bring in the Tinder card. That's probably what it is. You can't bring in Tinder card without bringing in these functions and maybe even displaying a Tinder card. Let's see. Still going. Okay, wait for it. Now it's built. Okay, so let me shut it down here. And let me bring in Tinder card just with a, oops, without the save. Let that build. All right, I'll troubleshoot off screen a little more. Now, here it is. If you are using React, you will also need Spring/web. There it is. We need this other dependency. So let's copy that. And I did that, but I forgot about that. Yep, I just forgot about it. So let's close. That's our problem. React app. Bring that in. That should do it. There we go. Okay, now our Tinder card needs to be refactored. There's our hello world, which is inside of our Tinder card. Okay, so it's kind of a cool plugin, but call it a plugin to dependency. Let's keep these functions because when you swipe one direction, you'll be able to ultimately say, hey, save that input to the database. But let's refactor this dating card. And let's tie in our database call. So kind of out here inside of our React, inside of our backend. Let's go all the way back to our backend. I'm going to make a database module. And I'm going to bring in Mongo client and object ID, import debug from debug, debug database channel. This is going to be app : database. Now I'm going to bring in two functions, kind of copy and paste. And this is going to connect to my DB URL in my .env. That was my connection string, as well as my database name. And then connect using that connection string and store that in a variable _db. And then here, this is a ping command to test the functionality. So I can run a ping, and on my server, I'm going to import ping from database. And so here now, we need export ping. And connect. Okay, so now I'm getting a ping that's showing I am hitting my, my connection string is working, which is the important part. I'm going to comment out that ping. Call, because I just want to make sure that we're pinging our database. Now I'm going to get a function called getPeople. So now that I have database access, I'm going to write a function called getPeople. It's going to connect to my people collection, do a find star dot star, it's like find everything, and convert it to array, and then return that when you call this async function. So really just three functions in here in my model, in my models or my database here, and I'm going to export get people. Okay, so this is getting all of the people out of my database. Again, my people, and you can fill up your own database with object IDs, a name, so generic name, and an image URL. So I'm using these images, and you can populate your own people in your database. So that's what my data looks like stored in my database. And ultimately, I'm going to be bringing that into the front end. So let's go to my close database. Now in the back end, go index. When I list my people, we're going to change that route so that it hits our database instead. So I'm going to change this to an async function so that I can call await, put a try catch, and const people equals await, and I need to bring in get people. My get people function. So this will be an array of people, and we'll send that to the front end. Res status 200 dot JSON people. So when you hit this backend list, it hits our database, gets all our people, sends it to the front end. Otherwise, console log the error and send error getting people. And so now I have this backend route that'll hit my database on the Express server. Now on my use effect, I should be able to call that with Axios. So I'm going to const people equals await. I'm going to use the Axios async await, Axios get. And this is localhost 3003 API people list. Now, because this is an await, we can put this inside of an async function. So here's what we're going to do, because we want to use this version of Axios. Let's put this inside of a function, async function called fetch data. And we can just call fetch data here. Put this inside of a try block. If it works, let's set people to people.data. So this will get it out of the database and set the people into our hook. Get that spelled correctly. Okay, so we wrap this logic inside of a function called fetch data, and then we just call that function. And I'm just going to do a console log people.data. Yeah, that's a good idea, just to make sure it gets to the front end and see what's in that. The people are, how about that? The people are okay, so saving that up on the front end. And this is all happening on the component mount because of how we're passing that empty array there. And let's see now, if I refresh in the console, okay, the people are object. We got 4 objects. So it's working because there's 4 people in our database. Maybe we could do, you'd have to map over the people kind of thing, but it's getting 4 objects and setting the people. So now we've got an array of objects here in this const. And so let's get these displayed. I'm going to set my class name to camel case, and now this is a little bit of boilerplate code, which is why you see that this is auto-filling. I'm going to take this suggestion, but you could see we're mapping our people, and it does use these 2 underscores for the class name, so we'll have to keep in mind as we're styling to use 2 underscores here. People.map, each person, put a Tinder card and some event handlers that when you swipe or a card leaves the screen. So here's some event handlers. These are all props of the Tinder card. So you can look at the different props of a Tinder card. Each Tinder card you can set the background image and give a person.name. Of course, the person.name is coming from there. And the image URL, person.image URL, is the background image. So we should be able to map through our people, get our people, put their name on screen, put their background image on screen, close the Tinder card, close a couple of divs. And we're getting there. You could see we got some names, and we've got some sort of swiping functionality going on. However, we need more CSS. So let's continue on writing some CSS. Again, I kind of went over that quickly, but basically we're mapping each person and putting them in a Tinder card, and the person name in the image URL. And let's open up our dating card CSS. And here's our dating cards container. So the class of dating cards 2 underscores container. We're going to say display flex, justify content center, and some margin on the top, 10 viewport height. Okay, the class of card, so let's look at the class of card, class name of card, which is this div right here. So we're styling now this card, which has the background image in that card. So each card, position of relative, background color white, a width of, and this is completely customizable, but this is what I did, padding 20 pixels, max width of 85% of the viewport width, height, we'll set 40 viewport height, box shadow, 0 top, 18 right, kind of fill that in, border radius, background size. This is getting it to cover the entire space that the background's in, and background position center. Okay. The class of swipe, position absolute, card content. So card content. So this is the class of swipe. So here's a Tinder card, and I don't know that I have a, it doesn't look like there is any card content. Nope, no card content here, so I'll leave that off. And the H3, right? The H3 inside of the card is the last thing I'm going to style. So class of card H3. Tell it to kind of go to the bottom of the container that it's in. Little margin on all four sides. Color white. Save that up. And now see how we're styling our cards. Okay. So now, again, we're pulling these images out of the database, pulling the names out of the database. We kind of have these swipe effects here. And right now, when you swipe, you're just console logging the events. Of course, in a real world app, you would, log it to a database. The person's profile that's logged in, their preferences. Okay, so we're just mocking a profile that's logged in, and mocking some other profile pictures, but again, just getting a bare bones swiping, I like you or I don't like you kind of feature going on. The last component are these buttons at the bottom. So let's go back to the app.jsx, and I'm going to bring in another component here called the swipe buttons. This is just more of a look and feel, very similar to the header. And so here, let's import swipe buttons. Plural. Okay, and our swipe buttons need to export default. some boilerplate. I hit save twice, let that save. Okay, so we're getting this swipe buttons component. Okay, so these swipe buttons, we're just going to be importing some icons. We'll start by importing the CSS. Import these from React icons, no. From @MUI icons material, that's right. And the icons that we're going to use, replay, close, star, favorite, flash on, and also the icon button, which we had in the header, from here. So we'll start with the div, class name of swipe buttons, icon button, can't put a CSS class on that, and let's do the replay icon, and then picking up on my other repos, icon button, okay, so there's 3 icons, then we got the favorite icon, okay, so there's 4 icons. Let's see that they are brought in and see that they need some styling. Okay, so there's our icon buttons. So now let's go to the CSS and get them positioned where we want them. And I'm just going to do a little copy paste here at the end. So getting the swipe buttons, if I open up the JSX, there should be a class of swipe buttons right here, and a flex box to go 100% across the screen and space them out from the bottom, 1 VH off of bottom. So that's the position fix. That gets them to go down below. And then this is individual styling of each button. And then all the buttons have a background color of white and a shadow, and then individual button colors. And so if you refresh that, this is kind of what we're looking at. And so now, this is kind of the local host version. Let me go back to my G-Cloud and check out my Rankin dating app dashboard. And if I go to Cloud Run, here's my service and here's my URL. So I'm going to copy this URL. Okay, and I'm going to change the URL of my production. Instead of using localhost now, I am using my Rankin service live URL. And let's deploy one last time the minimal dating app. Again, what's left is to fill in the blank on saving likes when, of course, you need a profile and getting user profiles. All my students have done that. They know how to bring that in, but you need to create profiles and create different accounts, with images. But you have these event handlers when you swipe left or swipe right. Let's look here under components, dating cards. Here on swipe, we call this on swipe, you could see you have a direction, right? And it says you swipe left or right. So based on the direction, you could save different intents to the database on this function. So when the user swipes, save that. So all that's left now is to troubleshoot the deployment, which is there's always things to troubleshoot when you redeploy. So let me go back here and run my gcloud and redeploy my service. Now that this is up and running on localhost, we get this running on gcloud. So here, yes, we're in the root folder, so that is correct. Less questions to answer this time. US Central 1, and now this will take a few minutes to spin. Okay, and here we are with our deployed app on gcloud. You can see here the deployment was successful. It gave me the Rankin service URL, deployed on gcloud, and everything up and running. So this is a fun one to just kind of bring in some different dependencies that we haven't used before, and get deployment to gcloud with both front end, back end all tied into one place. Pretty cool.